These are typical radiation exposures in a year's time in these different occupations. And now we're not talking REMs anymore, we're talking millirems of typical exposure, okay? So that's why I said those numbers of 5 and 50 REMs, that's way higher. They're much more than you could ever get with this unless you're really working at it. Now, where I'd put, you know, if you were your folks, like a lot of your customers would be in the lead inspector, and even if they're doing environmental work, it's very similar, okay? Granite. I don't know if you've read where granite can give off some radiation, and I've been there once, and it's all granite. So, yeah, I wondered that myself, and that's what I was told. So I guess, but basically, the analogy I like to use is if you use this instrument constantly and used it properly, as we're going to learn today, you'd get more radiation moving from here to Denver in a year's time than using this, okay? And I don't see the people in Denver dropping like flies, okay? Now, this is a scenario I don't really like to use, even though many of you may think you work 25-hour days, 400 days a year. Most of you don't. But to put this in better perspective, you see that it says that the exposure at the trigger, the hand holding the handle and at the trigger, is less than 0.1 millirem per hour, okay? Now, that's shooting into an alloy, a metal sample, okay? A higher density material. But let's say it was 0.1. That was the exposure at the hand. And you're the only operator, and you're going to run it 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. Your maximum exposure would be 200 millirems. And how much are we allowed on an extremity? Okay, 50 rems or 50,000 millirems. So you're a smidgen of what you're allowed, okay? Now, in lower density samples, the exposure at the hand goes up a little bit. Soils, it goes up a little. Soils, it's about 2 millirems, okay? But still, if you're the only operator for 2,000 hours a year, 4,000 millirems in a year, you're still well below the 50,000, very, very safe, okay? Different densities of sample scatter differently, okay? That's why I wanted to point that out. This is a good example of what not to do, okay? And if you did that, you'd have to do that for about 2 solid hours to reach that minimum that we were talking about of 50,000 on your fingers, okay? So we don't expect any of you to be doing that. But that's why you don't test things like that. So that's why there's a test stand. So again, if you shot your torso, how many times you would have to do that, okay?